Deepti Laurent joins me on the set to take a look at what the papers are saying today. Hi, Deepti.
Hi, Jeannie.
Lots of focus now on this first day after the resignation of Algeria's president, Abdelaziz Bouteflika, after 20 years in power.
That's right. It's a day after. There's a lot of questions being asked about what happens to Algeria now as well. El Khaba, a paper that tends to be critical of the government, they're paying tribute, as they did yesterday, to the, quote, popular uprising that put an end to the nightmare of the eternal rule, hailing the fact that the Algerian people managed to get rid of Bouteflika without even shedding a drop of blood. How to move forward, that's a question being asked by this paper, El Watan, which publishes a cartoon today where you see the Algerian people walking towards, well, supposedly constitutional order, but it's a rather critical take because you see the man in the middle of that cartoon is Gaid Salah, who is the leader of the army. So the idea being that even though the military says they're on the side of the people, they're the ones really overseeing this transition. Abdelkader Ben Salah, he's the one who's expected to be the interim president of Algeria. But for this cartoonist, Ik at El Watan, he too is part of the old order. You see him here essentially climbing into the picture frame that's been emptied out by Bouteflika.
Next, now, Deepti, there has been a lot of reaction around the world after that new law against homosexuals went into effect in Brunei yesterday.
Yeah, the backlash was swift, Jeannie. Widespread outrage and condemnation towards Brunei after the sultanate ushered in new laws, notably handing down the death penalty for same-sex acts and adultery. BuzzFeed reporting that a celebrity campaign spearheaded by George Clooney and Ellen DeGeneres has called for a boycott of the many luxury hotels owned by the Sultan of Brunei around the world. You've seen that list there, Le Maurice in Paris and the Plaza Athénée as well.
Some of the columnists, though, aren't quite so sure this will have much effect given all the oil and gas that the country has.
Well, you know, Brunei politically, Brunei economically is extremely rich thanks to those oil and gas exports. Politically, it's been under emergency rule ever since the 1960s, which means that the Sultan essentially has executive governing powers. Now, this writer for The Independent actually grew up in Brunei and tells us that this issue is not just about gay rights. It targets women and minorities as well. For instance, abortion is punishable by flogging, and people are criminalized if they expose Muslim children to other faiths. So for this writer, Britain actually, as a former colonial master of Brunei, has a responsibility to wield its influence. That could come, for instance, in the form of threatening not to renew a long-standing defense contract between the two countries. That's up for renewal next year. And this writer says that could be an opportunity for Britain to, quote, show its true colors as a standard bearer of human rights. Here in France, Libération is also looking at this issue. They're somewhat critical of what they see as France's lack of strong condemnation towards these laws. I quote, "As usual, it's a question of money. Brunei has two hotels in Paris. And last year, get this, Jeannie, business deals between the two countries increased by 6,500%. France delivering notably 7 Airbuses to the Sultanate."
All right, Deepti, not far from there. Indonesians will head to the polls in a few weeks to elect a new leader, and the shine seems to have worn off their president, Joko Widodo, who is running for re-election.
Yeah, when he was re-elected 5 years ago, he went from a small-time mayor to this maverick president, to the Indonesian Obama, they said, a poster boy for change and hope, a stark contrast to his opponent, who's a former military general facing human rights abuses. But 5 years on, The Guardian notes, the shine has kind of worn off. Some people feel he hasn't really lived up to the hype, and a big question remains over whether he's actually fulfilled his task. On the streets, he's still popular. He did a lot for national health insurance. He did a lot for education of the poor, but many worry about the deterioration of human rights and freedom of expression. Critics saying essentially Joko Widodo became the technocrat he said he wouldn't be.
Deepti, just to wrap up now, you've got a story about a Lithuanian man who got a very nice surprise during a recent flight to Italy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, nice surprises and flying don't go hand in hand anymore, do they, Jeannie? But this is an exceptional case. Skirmantas Strimaitas, he found that he was the only passenger aboard a Boeing 737-800 flight that normally can carry 189 people. So he essentially, he took this flight from Lithuania, his home country, to Italy recently, and essentially actually got the private jet experience for an economy class ticket. He spent the 2-hour flight taking selfies, reveling in the silence, no doubt stretching his legs across the many, many empty rows of seats. He actually told the website weather.com that it was a, quote, surreal and unique experience, and he actually felt regret upon landing that he might never get to experience it again.
That is certainly once in a lifetime. I can't imagine that ever happening. Deepti, thanks for that. Deepti Laurent there with that look at the papers today. Thanks to you for watching as well. Don't forget, you can always get a closer look at any of the stories we're covering for you on our website. That address, france24.com.